Have you ever stood inside a marriage or a love you once believed was destiny, and suddenly felt your heart grow so tired you wanted to let go? In today's video, I'm sharing my real story in Denmark. The days so cold even our love felt frozen, the moments we almost lost each other, and how we finally reached the star we once thought was impossible to touch. This is the journey of saving a love that was quietly dying, using the smallest, simplest things. Love under Nordic skies. You know that strange moment when you arrive in a new country, and everything feels like a movie you didn't audition for? That was me stepping into Denmark. Cold air stinging my cheeks, street signs I couldn't pronounce, and a love so big it felt ridiculous to trust. Imagine holding a suitcase in one hand and your whole future in the other, hoping the person waiting for you at the airport was still the same person you left everything behind for. That's the kind of hope that makes your stomach do origami. The funny thing is, love doesn't care about weather forecasts. My heart was warm, excited, naive, while Denmark greeted me with winds strong enough to rearrange my personality. And there he was, standing under those soft Nordic lights, smiling like he truly believed we could build a life here. Your brain tries to be logical, whispering things like, hey, maybe this is a terrible idea. But your heart? Oh, your heart is basically a toddler jumping on a trampoline yelling, let's do it again. The first week felt magical. Everything he said sounded like music, even the boring stuff like, we need to buy dish soap. You know that early phase glow? When you think love alone can melt any cultural difference, any insecurity, any distance. Neuroscience actually backs that up. Your brain floods you with dopamine, then sprinkles serotonin on top like emotional glitter. You're basically high on love, walking around convinced the universe is on your side. But here's the thing they don't tell you. When you follow someone to their country, you're not just in love with a person, you're in a relationship with an entire culture. Suddenly your heart is juggling new rules, new expectations, and new ways of existing. It's chaotic. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. And there were moments when I looked at him, looked at Denmark, looked at myself, and wondered which part one was outgrowing. But that first night, God, I still remember the way the city lights reflected on the water as he held my hand. The whole world felt quiet, as if Denmark itself whispered, let's see what you two can survive. Love is brave like that. It walks into a foreign land wearing nothing but hope and a slightly delusional confidence. And honestly, that's the good part. That's the part you don't forget. Because every big love story starts with someone choosing to leap before they know how to land. And that's exactly what I did, under those soft, silent Nordic skies. Two cultures, one home. There's a moment every couple faces when the fairy tale glow fades, and you finally meet the real version of the person you love. For us, that moment arrived somewhere between a grocery aisle full of rye bread I didn't understand, and a silence so awkward it could have hosted its own talk show. Living together in Denmark wasn't just romance. It was two cultures trying to share the same tiny kitchen without declaring emotional war over how to stack the dishwasher. You think love will make everything easy. But your brain doesn't care about romance. It cares about patterns. And when two people come from different cultures, their patterns clash like two radio stations fighting for the same frequency. His let's talk about it later felt like rejection. My we need to discuss this now sounded to him like a surprise interrogation. Even our sense of humor needed subtitles. There were days when I felt like an alien in my own home, trying to decode his habits the way scientists decode whale songs. Why do Danes eat quietly? Why is personal space treated like a sacred temple? And why does everyone look emotionally stable, even when it's raining horizontally? Meanwhile, he was trying to understand me, my warmth, my intensity, my tendency to talk about everything all at once as if feelings might expire overnight. And yet, in the middle of all that chaos, there were gentle moments. Like watching him cut vegetables in perfect Scandinavian precision, while I told him my chaotic family stories. Or the nights when we sat on the sofa, wrapped in blankets, laughing over nothing because exhaustion made everything funny. That's when you realize love isn't about sameness. It's about rhythm. Two different beats slowly syncing until they sound like a song. Psychologists say couples from different cultures have higher conflict but also deeper connection, because everything requires intention. You can't just love on autopilot. You have to choose each other in the tiny moments. When he misunderstands your tone, when you misunderstand his silence, when both of you are frustrated but still pass each other a cup of tea. That's the quiet architecture of a home. And honestly, those tiny ordinary decisions, choosing patience, choosing curiosity, choosing each other, they built our home long before the walls did. Love doesn't magically erase the gap between cultures. It just gives you a bridge sturdy enough to cross. And we were learning one awkward misunderstanding at a time how to build that bridge together. The first big fight. There's a strange, almost cinematic moment right before a couple has their first real fight. Your stomach drops, the air changes texture, and suddenly you're both standing on a tiny emotional island wondering who's going to throw the first metaphorical coconut. For us, that moment happened in the most unromantic place imaginable. The hallway of our apartment, surrounded by wet jackets, mismatched shoes, and a pile of unwashed laundry silently judging you if he started with something stupid. It always does. A forgotten message. A late reply. A tone that sounded sharper than it should. But beneath the surface, the real issue was bigger. Two people exhausted from the weight of expectations neither of us had the courage to say out loud. When you move across the world for love, every disagreement feels heavier. It's not, "You didn't listen to me." It becomes, "Did I make a mistake choosing this life?" He said something firm. I said something dramatic. His voice got quiet. Mine got louder. And suddenly we were standing on opposite sides of the hallway like two contestants in a Scandinavian emotional showdown. That's when the psychology kicks in. Your brain enters fight or flight mode, pumping cortisol through your body, convincing you that this moment is more dangerous than it actually is. So instead of communicating, you defend. Instead of listening, you assume. Instead of breathing, you panicked. At one point I remember thinking, is this how people fall apart? Is this how small cracks turn into full earthquakes? Because that's what love feels like when it's shaken, fragile, confusing, and terrifyingly human. You start doubting everything. Him. Yourself. The future. Denmark. The weather. Especially the weather. But here's the part one didn't expect. In the middle of that hurricane of feelings, I saw something on his face that changed everything. Not anger. Not frustration. Fear. The same fear I felt. Fear of losing what we hadn't even fully built yet. That's the universal truth about couples. Behind all the noise, most arguments are just two people desperately wanting to feel safe. And then something ridiculous happened. I started crying. Not elegant movie tears. More like a faucet malfunctioning. He panicked because nothing terrifies a man more than a woman crying in a hallway. He reached for me with that awkward, hesitant tenderness only someone who truly loves you can have. And in that clumsy embrace, everything softened. Our anger, our assumptions, even our pride. It all melted like snow on warm hands. Scientists call it co-regulation, when two nervous systems calm each other down simply by being close. It's the body's quiet way of saying, "You're not alone. Stay." That night, we didn't solve everything. We didn't magically understand each other. But we learned something more important. Love isn't proven in the easy days. It's proven in the fights you survive, the words you apologize for, and the messy hallway moments where you realize losing each other would hurt far more than being right. And that was the first night we chose us, even when it was hard. A promise in the kitchen. There's something strangely sacred about a kitchen. Not the fancy Pinterest kind. Just the everyday place where crumbs live forever. Where the fridge light feels like a spotlight on your worst habits. Where love quietly negotiates its survival between dirty dishes and mismatched mugs. Our kitchen in Denmark was tiny, so tiny that turning around too fast felt like a romantic collision waiting to happen. But that space held one of the most important moments of our relationship. It was a Sunday morning. The kind where the sky looked like someone forgot to turn the brightness up. I was standing by the counter, trying to whisk pancake batter into submission, feeling the emotional hangover from our first big fight. You know that awkward heaviness couples feel the day after an argument? It's like both of you are walking around with invisible bubble wrap, afraid to step on the wrong spot. He walked in quietly, like someone entering a courtroom, and sat at the little wooden table we bought secondhand. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't angry anymore. It was careful, almost tender. Scientists call this the repair stage. The moment after emotional conflict when your brains try to reconnect like Wi-Fi searching for a lost signal. Then he said something so simple it shattered me. I don't want our home to feel like a place we survive. I want it to feel like a place we return to. Not poetic. Not dramatic. Just honest. And honest hits deeper than beautiful ever will. My hand shook a little as I poured the batter onto the pan, because suddenly the kitchen smelled like forgiveness instead of flour. He came up next to me, placed his hand on the small of my back. A touch so gentle it felt like an apology without words. That's the magic of long-term love. Half the conversations happen in silence. We started talking. Not about blame, not about who was right, but about fear. His fear of disappointing me. My fear of not belonging here in his world. In this cold foreign country where even the supermarkets felt intimidating. When people say marriage is compromise, they make it sound like you're trading stickers. But real compromise is deeper. It's two people admitting they're scared, and then building a bridge with those admissions instead of walls. At some point, he reached for the spatula, burned the first pancake, laughed nervously and said, I don't want to lose you over stupid things. I joked that Denmark has strict rules about everything, but in that moment we made our own. We would always talk, even when talking feels like swallowing rocks. And right there, next to a half-burned pancake and a sink full of dishes, we made a promise. Not the wedding kind. The real kind. The kind you whisper when no one is watching. We'll stay. Even when it's hard. That tiny kitchen became our first safe place. When family feels far away. There's a particular kind of loneliness you only understand when you live in another country, especially one where winter feels like a personality trait. It's not the dramatic loneliness you see in movies. It's quieter, like a soft ache hiding under your ribs. It shows up when you least expect it. Scrolling through photos of family dinners you're not in, hearing a familiar song that suddenly feels like a door back home you can't open, or realizing your mother's voice sounds farther away each time you call. Denmark was beautiful, yes. But beauty doesn't keep you warm when your heart feels 4,000 miles stretched thin. I remember one evening, the sky already dark at 4 p.m., when the weight of missing home hit me so hard it felt physical. I was sitting on the bedroom floor, surrounded by unpacked laundry, holding a sweater my mom had folded before I left. Love can make you brave enough to cross oceans, but it can't stop the homesickness that sneaks up like a shadow. Neuroscience says distance from loved ones activates the same stress responses as physical pain. And honestly, my brain didn't need science to tell me that. I could feel it. He found me there, curled up in silence, pretending I wasn't crying. Danes are gentle but practical. Emotions don't explode here, they simmer quietly. So he didn't rush in with solutions or speeches. He just sat beside me, legs crossed, elbows on his knees, like he was keeping watch with me instead of trying to pull me out of the storm. That's when you realize the difference between someone who loves you and someone who understands you. One tries to fix the pain, the other sits with you in it. I know I'm not your whole world, he said softly, but I want to be the person standing next to you while you miss the parts one can't replace. And just like that, something softened inside me. The loneliness didn't disappear, but it shifted, like grief becoming memory. We started making tiny rituals to bridge the distance. Video calling my family every Sunday while he cooked something warm. Listening to old songs from home while we cleaned our apartment. Letting the scent of my culture mix with the rhythm of his. And slowly the ache stopped feeling like a hole and more like a room, one he wasn't afraid to enter with me. The truth is, when you build a life far from home, you learn that family isn't one location. It's a mosaic. Bits of your past, bits of your present, pieces of your heart living in different time zones. And the person who chooses to walk through that emotional geography with you, that person becomes part of your definition of home. Love doesn't replace family, but it can build a new one, brick by brick, moment by moment, tear by tear. The night we almost gave up. There's a night every long-term relationship remembers. The night when everything feels too heavy, too complicated, too fragile to hold together. Ours happened on a cold Friday in Copenhagen. The kind of night when the wind slapped our faces like it was personally offended by our relationship. We were tired. From miscommunications. From cultural differences. From expectations we never said out loud but kept tripping over like emotional Legos. Nothing dramatic happened. That's the cruel thing. Sometimes love doesn't explode. It erodes. We were sitting in the living room barely speaking. Not angry. Just disconnected. Like two ghosts politely sharing the same sofa. My chest felt tight, the way it does when your heart is quietly breaking and your brain is pretending nothing's wrong. He kept looking at the floor. I kept looking at the window. The distance between us was only a few inches, but emotionally it felt like crossing an ocean. The human brain hates uncertainty more than pain. Psychologists call it anticipatory grief. The fear of losing someone before they're even gone. And that night I felt it. Deep, heavy, sharp. I remember thinking, maybe love isn't enough. Maybe we've reached our limit. It terrified me how calm that thought felt. Then he said, maybe you'd be happier if you went home. And something inside me cracked, not because he wanted me gone, but because he genuinely believed I deserved more than what we were giving each other. Sometimes the person you love can hurt you the most while trying to protect you. I stood up to leave the room. Not because I wanted to walk away forever, but because staying in that moment felt like drowning. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the doorknob. And then, I heard him get up. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just a quiet movement, like a last attempt not to lose something precious. He caught my wrist. Not tightly, not desperately, just enough to say, stay. When I turned around, his eyes looked like someone standing at the edge of losing everything. No arrogance. No pride. Just fear and love tangled together. I don't know how to fix everything, he whispered. But I don't want to lose you trying. Funny how your body reacts before your brain does. My shoulders softened. My heartbeat slowed. That's co-regulation again. The nervous system syncing, calming each other without words. It felt like our first fight all over again, but stripped of noise, stripped of ego, stripped of everything except truth. We sat on the floor. Backs against the wall, not touching, not speaking, just breathing the same air until the pain stopped feeling like a threat. Sometimes healing doesn't look like a breakthrough. Sometimes it looks like two exhausted people deciding to try again tomorrow. Love isn't the absence of breaking points. It's surviving them together. Building our little universe. After nights like that, you start noticing something subtle but powerful. Love isn't grand gestures or perfect moments. It's the quiet, small decisions you make every day to stay together, to understand each other, to keep building your little universe, even when the wind outside howls like it wants to tear it apart. In Denmark, with its soft gray skies and brisk winds, our home became more than walls and furniture. It became a lab for patience, understanding, and tiny acts of care. We began creating routines that felt like glue. Coffee at exactly 7 a.m., even if one of us was running late. Cooking together, even if one of us burned the meal, which admittedly was often me. Leaving little notes for each other. Tiny reminders that, I see you, and I'm here. Neuroscience says shared rituals release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which explains why even small mundane acts felt like hugs for the soul. But even without science, we could feel it. The invisible thread that slowly made us inseparable. One evening, we started a new tradition. Writing down one thing we appreciated about each other before bed. At first it felt awkward, like reading lines in a play. But soon those words became anchors. Thank you for listening today. I love how you laugh at the smallest things. Little bricks forming the foundation of trust and intimacy. Our house, which once echoed with silence or tension, now hummed with a rhythm that belonged only to us. We also began celebrating differences instead of fearing them. His calm, structured approach to life balanced my impulsive tendencies. My passion and curiosity added color to his routine. Together, we created a dynamic neither of us could have built alone. Psychologists call this complementary partnership. A relationship where opposing traits don't clash but instead strengthen the bond. And honestly, it felt magical even in its simplest forms. Parenthood wasn't in our immediate plans, but the metaphor was the same. Nurturing something together, whether it was a plant on the windowsill or a shared dream of future family trips. We learned to compromise without resentment, to listen without judgment, to love without conditions. That's how our little universe grew. Not by escaping conflict, but by facing it, learning from it, and building bridges instead of walls. And in that process, I realized something profound. Home isn't a place. It's the shared heartbeat of two people who choose each other every single day. And when you build with intention, even the coldest, grayest Danish day feels like warmth. Love isn't just surviving. It's thriving quietly, persistently, beautifully. The star we reach together. There's a moment in every long journey, whether it's love, life, or simply surviving winters in Denmark, when you realize that the star you thought was impossibly far is actually within your grasp. For us, that star wasn't a destination, a house, or even a perfect relationship. It was the life we built together, the trust we nurtured, the quiet understanding that even on our worst days, we were still standing side by side. I remember one evening, the sky painted in soft twilight, standing by our window and watching the city lights flicker across the water. I felt an incredible mixture of awe and relief. We had fought, cried, laughed, and learned together. Every argument, every tiny ritual, every act of patience had led us here. It wasn't magic, it was commitment, resilience, and the choice to never give up on each other. Psychologists say couples who survive cultural differences and emotional storms develop what they call emotional granularity, the ability to understand not just your own feelings, but also those of your partner, in intricate detail. And that night I felt it. I could read his exhaustion, his joy, his quiet pride in us. He could read mine. And in that mutual understanding, we found our star. It wasn't flashy or public. There were no fireworks or applause. Just two people, leaning on each other, realizing that love's highest achievement isn't perfection. It's presence, patience, and shared growth. I thought back to all the nights I almost gave up, all the distance from family, all the cold, dark winters. Every trial had shaped us into the team we had become. And here's the truth I want everyone to hear: your star might feel unreachable, but sometimes it's not about stretching farther. It's about building the hands and hearts that can reach it together. That's how we did it. That's how we held on when everything seemed too heavy. That's how love became not just a feeling, but a universe we created together. So I ask you, what star are you still reaching for? And who is standing next to you as you stretch your hand? Remember, even the coldest skies can hold stars, and the best ones shine brightest when shared.